How could I have been this remiss? I have been a fan of this place for decades. I have been coming here almost as long as I've been in the antique business. This is Chattanooga's East Ridge Antique District. There is just so much here. I'm not going to get to show you most of it today, but we will come back. We're going to spend our time today at Easttown Antiques. Chattanooga really is a fun place to shop for antiques and vintage, and I remember coming here 30 years ago and buying the coolest teepee lamp from the 1950s. A big wigwam-y looking thing. Good old folding chairs, like these colors. Wrought iron fence rail, all useful things for around the house. There is a nice, big, fun, well-designed Eickholt piece, and when you see this, you see why Eickholt is so desirable with paperweight collectors now. There's the signature. This was done in 1995. It's about the time they started beveling them so that they could be stood up as well as laid flat. So it's a pretty cool piece. And it's priced at $125, which is not really a bad price for him nowadays. Hobo cell. Yes, drug rep swag was being given out a long time before it was banned in the 20-aughts. This one is 1950 and was by Sebastian of Sebastian's Miniatures. He just didn't get to take credit for it. An older Spode pattern with the Copeland back stamp and embossed stamped Edna pattern, and I think it's very pretty. I like the purple, and the prices are really good. $15 for the serving bowl. I mean, this is probably 110 years old. I like that calling card holder with the fan. Milk glass from about 1900. That is neat. $45. In the 20s, when old iron size went sailing around the country in the late 20s, it spurred a lot of interest in ship motifs, including bookends. Rookwood joined that in the late 20s with these blue ones, and then came out with a dinnerware line. They didn't do much dinnerware. This is Rookwood Cameo Ship. Pattern you don't see very often from that era. A very early Rock City pamphlet from about the time it opened. Benton's Burmese glows under a black light, so the prices are up. You see a lot of prices around $85, $95, $125. Here is a peach blow bride's basket from 100 years earlier, upon which these designs were based, and it is the same price. I'll bet Grandma never imagined you were going to put black lights in her Fenton custard glass lamp. But for $325, you can do whatever you like. Apparently the winner of the homebrew steak, well, nobody made it to the finish line. That's homebrew for you. This is really, really cool. This is an oyster-shaped glass bottle. Hard to tell it's glass. This would have been done about the time oysters in their juice became very popular with inlanders when refrigerated boxcars started running in the 1870s, and you could suddenly get fresh seafood far away from where it was harvested. Very pretty old ivory bowl. I've always liked this particular rose pattern from about 1910. This one has all the stamps. Silesia Oma was the maker. Old ivory is the pattern. Silesia being one of the areas now, I believe in Poland actually. Nice peach blow Victorian piece. I'm thinking it was a Stevens and Williams. $95 is not a bad price. This is old, not a reproduction. Some more old ivory. I like the little handled nappies at $35 each. And if you really love Royal Dalton Seagull pattern, yes, you could get table lamps. And these came out fairly early. Look at the operation up there. These are going to be from probably right around 1950. They're priced at $235 for the pair. And I think those could be sellers because that is still a very popular line of china. $35 on the Royal Copenhagen dog. I think that's very cute. This looks like it's from one of the military institutes during the Civil War. It says Civil War Compote. We haven't found a lot of Civil War stuff in this store. It's getting so scarce. Not all the stores in Chattanooga are going to be able to have a stock of it at a given time. Little transferware dresser box here, probably Japanese, looking at the relatively low quality of transfers, although it's ornately done. Also has the raised beading like Japanese. Torquay candlestick, only $12.50. That seems very inexpensive. I slept and drank that life was beauty Woke and found that life was duty. Oh dear, go back to sleep. Interesting blue color in this cloisonne. This is nice and heavy with the dragon on it. Next to it, one of these artist signed Russian boxes, but the top has had some damage. It looks like somebody put their curling iron on it or something. This is to measure the specific alcohol as proof in spirits. $85, English made. Beauvoir in Mississippi is where Jefferson Davis would go. It was his last home, and it was restored in the 1940s by the Daughters of Confederate Veterans. These would have been imported sometime after it was opened to the public in the late 40s. The Rosemeade Buffalo Bank at $30 seems like it could be a buy. This fish bank is interesting. This might be Yadro, but it looks more like now. I'd like to see the price on the fish, so I think we're going to go fishing for some banks. Well, this case is 75% off. None of this looks too interesting, but I do like the samovar. It does not have the teapot that would have sat on top of it originally, though. Seems to be priced very well, like $30. That's actually quite a buy. Nothing else in here is, though. The owl in the bank with the interesting vertical eye pupils is a Trentham artware from Devon in England. There's an American bisque and a Hull version of the Corky Pig. This is a later one done with the tavern silhouette pattern on the side for the collectors. I like that little bank with the donkey there, too. All of these are half off, but I can't see any of the prices. Heisey's Flamingo Pink is a little brighter than a lot of the Elegant Depression Glass pink colors. The big bowl in the middle is $37.50 now. All of this is priced at half off. The Copper Pot by Landers, Frary, and Clark was done originally in an 1894 patent. Notice it has a burner underneath, so this would have been something for a large home or possibly small hotel. It's priced at $150 now. This was the beginning of the percolator setup that has come to dominate coffee making, well, pretty much ever since. Here's something you really only can find in antique stores now. They won't let you sell them online. I guess they're worried about impersonation, but you can come to an antique store and buy police badges. They are legal to own. Washington State Patrol. I've seen that one once or twice, getting pulled over for speeding. Not my favorite. Very early California license, Auto Club of Southern California. That's the beginning of AAA, the American Automobile Association. They were the ones who started fighting for better roads and identification for your vehicle so it couldn't be stolen, and a lot of things that turned out to be really important. Rocket Bank is cool. 120 seems a little lofty, though. On the other hand, 55 on the Hubley cast iron race car from about 1940 seems like a pretty good deal. The old fire truck here, priced at $195. And that's an interesting thing. Tickets for children. How it worked on the Union Pacific Railroad. I'm sure that they had a lot of parents, especially in Depression days, when I'm sure that was made, who were trying to get their kids on for free. Lenox really branched out into figurines around 1990 when they were so popular, and they did this line, which are nicely painted and well done and have some realism to them, but they're only selling for about $15 to $25 each because they're just too recent and everybody bought them, collected them. None of them ever got broken, so there's just going to be a lot of them around. Here's some real old tools. Woodworking planes, a lot of the smaller block planes they've marked down to 12, but the better stuff like the Powercraft jack plane here is 40, and this one's 35. This is a Ward Master Stanley. And then all sorts of interesting things that absolutely are usable, but also look cool on a wall. Woodblock planes, and a little red wagon to carry it all. $95 for this nice table lamp with the big heavy vase and the slag glass insert seems like a very good price. Those look great lit. There is a darling little slag glass paned, tiny little desk, child size really. $125 on that. Someone has turned this into a wine cabinet. It's a little rickety though. This appears to be a lot newer than it looks because these are brand new knobs and this has been done by a machine. Let's see what we have in the way of carnival glass here. Oh, I think that's a Northwood pattern. I've always liked that. Yes, there's the N in the circle. $55 on that. Benton glass, $59. Not bad prices for what these pieces are. And then, oh, if only this had a lid. Oh well, no stopper for you, darn it. This is a beautiful early Lenox Blake tea service. When Lenox had just become the White House China around 1917, they started doing really elegant artware. And this with the butterflies and the webs, just really incredible with all the veining. They're asking $1,000 for the set, but it sure is something. I like the big rhinestone buckle on the Whiting & Davis clutch here as well. Well, this dealer got the memo on ashtrays being collectible again. I'm used to seeing this guy in white rather than orange. And they have him priced at $55. Definitely mid-century. The Playboy Club, a classic, $25. Various motels. Steamship lines. People sure felt free to take ashtrays with them from everywhere they went. Republican ashtray. Very pretty compacts. And here I like the horse, the Pegasus flying on the Yardley compact for $95. $35 on the Cody compact from France. That's a very nice facade to cover up your coal-burning furnace in the summer so that you don't get hot air down the shaft. Very pretty circa 1890s sideboard here. I like the stained glass, the leaded glass in the inserts of the doors. Some nice press carving. And then if we take this away so you can see it, it's got a very interestingly shaped mirror. So it has a lot of uniqueness, and it is priced at $1,500. Wow, a whole bunch of applied flowers from England. You have to be so careful about the condition on these, but the basket is rather nice and appears to have been handled very well. This one is made by Rosina. Be very careful not to knock that up against anything. They have 22 on that, which for a basket in that kind of condition with the basket weave is a pretty good deal. Very popular around 1970 as gifts, partly because people recognize the difficulty of making them. Is this guy Tonala? No, he's a heavier, well, it says Mexico Al, but he's a very heavy stoneware. It is made in Mexico. Certainly has the style, but a little coarser. Gaudy Dutch, I really do enjoy some of these color schemes. It took Japanese imari and turned it into something uniquely English. These are marked made in England, so these are going to be sometime around 1900, really near the end of production of this sort of thing. $40 for the pitcher, $40 for the teapot. I like that the teapot has the trivet. We grew up with this pineapple, although orange-colored drink set when I was a kid, living in Florida. Here's a fun square pattern of dishes, and I like square. I always mention that. Franciscan Trio. This was done in the 1960s, so it says color seal and oven safe. And yeah, this stuff did not wear out very easily. Prices are pretty good on this. It's considered a decent mid-century pattern with a little bit of a naturalistic bent. And the shapes are fun. $92.50 for the pitcher, and the tumblers is the most expensive part. So we've got some green bottle glass there, and then some regular bottles. And then right in the middle we have this piece of glass. This is imperial glass. It's very heavy. It's supposed to look like jade. It was done in the 1960s. Oh, it's a little damaged. That's too bad because I don't think the dealer knows how good this actually is. It does have the Imperial glass label on the bottom, the IG. The lids were heavy and people dropped them heavily and broke the pieces on the bottom. So $10, it'll have to stay. Otherwise, that would have been a bargain. The French lamp is really sweet. It has a French fabrication mark right there. It's $85. I like the cage of flowers. It's a little as is, but it mostly covers the light bulb, and the light bulb's old, but it doesn't seem to work. I'm looking for covered wagons to go to Portland with me. This one's $25, Wells Fargo and Company. Cute, but I'd really like one that had a lamp in it. If you were born before this date in 1958, then you were buying this in 1979. They got to April Fool's Day, and I guess whatever establishment this was in closed down because that was the end of that. A little bit damaged. It's only $18. If it had the whole calendar, that would be a pretty good deal for one of these old bar calendars. These little toys made of celluloid that are supposed to wind up and swing around are cute for $28. Very pleased to see some old enamel signs that appear to really be old. The Pontiac Chieftain, Standard of Ohio, Oilsome. I mean, prices are in the $650 to $1,000 range because that's what these sell for now. Amber swag lamp and this very neo-colonial looking thing from about 1970 that looks like what a lot of people my grandparents knew would have had. $75 on that, but I like the shape of this mirror. It says it is from about 1965. It's shaped at 125. And look how we fit perfectly in it. My favorite thing in this 20% off space is the old payphone. And this does seem to be real, even with the paint. Looks like it's had a hard life. They have $149 on it. It is 20% off because it says 20% off everything. So even though this says ND for no discount, if you decided you were going to buy this, you take that up and you argue that it says everything, not everything except firm or no discount. We're in Civil War area, but these are actually European cavalry officers. Saber from Austria we see on the bottom, and the top says it's a Belgian officer's épée from the mid-1800s. This one is U.S. Army, and it is regulation, but this is a saber from the Spanish-American War. Is this real or fake? It is fake. It does not say USA because we finally got the Chinese to quit putting USA under their fake Roseville signatures. It looks like paint by number. Here is a wide swath of furniture. I like this carved Victorian piece. I like the fact that it's got a design on the top as well. Birds and flowers. Aesthetically quite pleasing. A little bit of age cracking here, and it's pretty rattly, and that's the problem. You'd have to take it apart and glue it again to get it to be stronger. But it is 150 years old, so glue is entitled to shrivel and shrink and need to be redone once in a century and a half. Priced at $250. Now this is a wonderful Art Nouveau shape, and I hate the fact that it's been painted turquoise, even though I love turquoise. It's just not something that should have been done to this piece of furniture. It is priced at $155, and somebody thought it was a great idea to do to this, and they really changed this one a whole lot. It's almost not even recognizable as the 1910 antique it is. I don't see reseller bargains, but I like the Hollycraft pastels. I always have. You can see in the back there, the earrings they've got 40 on, which is probably a fair price. I can't quite read the price on the big brooch, but I imagine it's about 80. Yes, it is. Kobe pin, the flower on the left there. That one is priced at $98.50. Good looking BSK piece here. I like the Weiss in the purple, and the Weiss in the black, and the Weiss in the blue and green. Lots of Weiss here. That very serious bulldog is a Silvac piece. Silvac is a good pottery maker that is known more in England and Canada, but I think that's a very stout and handsome dog for $45. This is a great piece of French glass. Schneider is a good company, and the way they worked it into the bale is really cool. $295 on that. There's another really good French piece. That's a Montjoy piece. That's the attribution the dealer has made, and I believe they're right. Victorian, but with that deep enameling in the flower. Very pretty shading of the purple to the clear. These are Rouge Flambe by Royal Dalton. That red color is just really great. White with red birds. People are liking those very stark combinations. Now that people have got a big collection of these, they're looking for interesting colors. A little later motion lamp, you can tell by the way it's finished here. Priced accordingly at $60. Some very geometric mid-century lamps. Not very exciting colors, unfortunately. This one's having 25% off everything. They have a lot of the 70s Sirocco plastic, Burwood plastic type wall plaques. I do like this Hager piece. $32 with the discount. I just like the size, I think, as much as anything. These, I think, are pretty good. The Homeco, which are the Ruins. And they would be $24 for the pair. With the interest in neoclassical decorating, I think those could work into a room. And the velvet painting of the dog is only $15 now. What's great about this is the Structo Fire Department has its original box. Somebody played with it a little, but it's in pretty good shape overall. You can tell from the front end that this is an early 60s vehicle. The one behind was a ride on top. That's why there's a big steering wheel sitting on the top of it. American Flyer was a huge rival to the Lionel trains. It was made by Gilbert, the same company that made the Erector sets. And you see that these 1950 vintage passenger cars with their boxes are selling around $25 to $35 a piece. I think my favorite thing in here is the Seiko tray, which unfortunately doesn't seem to be for sale because they're using it for display like I would like to do. But they have some fun little things on it, Masonic pins and modern-made tape measure and pins from DuPont. With those pins from DuPont, the thing to look for is to see whether they say 10K on the back, because there were 10 karat gold issued in that time, and a lot of people have not figured out to look for that. The 10 karat gold pin would be worth about $35 rather than $5. We are right near Rock City, and it is quite an attraction, and there's a whole bunch of ephemera from it. It's been there since the 1930s. The gnomes are classic. It is a great place where you can see out for an amazing distance, and yes, I have seen all 7 states. I was there on a good clear day. It is just off of Lookout Mountain. Oh, Barrel of Monkeys. Of course, if you saw Toy Story, you know about these, but this was one of my favorite games when I was 4 years old. Still so easily amused. That's why I love all of this old stuff. And if you do too, please do like. Please click the thumbs up button. And also, please do subscribe if you haven't, because it doesn't cost anything, but it really helps YouTube know that you are out there and you are interested in this kind of content. And then we get to bring it to more people and have more fun. Here's a pair of Weller cornucopias that are priced individually, but are certainly interesting looking in terms of the glaze. This is the 1930s. Notice how they're starting to have quality control issues. It looks more like a McCoy level of finish. And that is because they were fast falling from being the biggest pottery company in the world to, by the late 1930s when this was done, just struggling to stay in business like everybody else. I like the color though, and actually I like the fact that the glaze isn't perfect. It gives it a rustic nature that's appealing in the same way McCoy is to me. Somebody got a little too close to that school bus, $48. The 50s were all about kitchen gadgets, and this one does everything. Salt, pepper, seasonings, and, well, closed. Are these older pieces here? It looks like it says Vintage McCoy Covered Wagon, but when you look at the bottom, it is not McCoy. It's actually made by a company in Texas in the 1970s. Here's the log cabin with the same mark on it. The ornateness of the carving on this box is something worth appreciating. It says it is dated August of 1876. Made by Reverend Orler for my father, Dr. Hunter, on his 50th birthday. Now, there used to be some sort of cartouches on there that are gone. Interesting piece, though. Well, this dealer has probably been here as long as this store has been here, and there is a lot of Heisey glassware in here. Heisey is not as well remembered because they went out of business in 1957, so they've been gone a long time. But they made some really great patterns, like the Lariat triple candlesticks here, which are now only $55. There's the covered candy jar. Lots of this very pretty Sahara yellow color. I like the twist pattern, especially the ice bucket. That's $45 now. Jane Wyman broke a bunch of their animals, like the very famous pony here in the film The Glass Menagerie. I think there's some really pretty pieces here for someone at these prices to start collecting again. A good number 6 churn. I'm not seeing churns very often anymore. It's a form that's really popular with collectors. This one's here because it's $2.75, and that's definitely top dollar for that piece. And only $12 on the Singer sewing machine here from about 1970. I just got one of these for a similar price and similar condition. I think they're worth about 3 times that much. Some sort of a signal light from the U.S. Navy. I recognize the box. It is empty. $25 for an empty military box is about right. They're certainly durable. And they are appealing to the Funko Pop crowd. Again, I don't know what happens when this suddenly isn't new anymore, but we'll see. Lots of sports cards, and they do have some of the golden era, it appears. $40 is not bad on this multi-dimensional Black Label beer sign, but you have to be careful about condition. Great condition on that 1930s metal gold Coca-Cola bottle thermometer. They have it priced at $65. A bunch of cute vintage Christmas and holiday stuff here, including the Gilner elf in the train there. $42 on that. That's a hard piece to find. WMF made wonderful glass in the Art Nouveau era as well. I love this metallic green glaze. $2.45 on that piece. The Myra pattern. Next to it, here's this Bohemian made piece with the handles. Really enjoyed that overlay. That one's $3.50. Mosier made great glass in the Victorian times, and they made great glass in modern times. This pentagram vase is a really neat piece in a good Submerso color, $95. $135 is not a bad price on the cranberry beverage pitcher. The hobnail opalescent by Fenton. Well, this place definitely has antiques and vintage and a collectibles. The triple Van Briggle vase, all fused together, $45. It's one I've always liked. Tri-State Pottery Festival, East Liverpool, Ohio, where so many of the dinner makers were. There's a nice piece of Wedgwood Majolica. Wedgwood Majolica, like Wedgwood in general, was a little better finished. Not so rough and coarse in the texturing as you see there. East Ridge Antique District. One down, a bunch to go. We will have to keep coming back to show you more. Department 1-3 is more of a decorator's store, although they do have some antique things sometimes. This is Noble Antiques and Curiosities. Sugar Plum East Ridge, which has a lot of used furniture as well as home decorating and antiques. Antiques Artisan, which is a little bit of both. There's an olive oil company, and then Easttown Antiques. There's Antiques Books and Collectibles. I don't think they're open today. Then there's the Antique Mall here. That one's been here a long time too, and so has Crazy Daisy, all under the huge sign. There's a lot to it. However, we have some other important places to see today before the sun goes down. Chattanooga is very important in the antique and vintage business because there's a lot of great shopping here and a lot of stores and a lot of old things that were left behind. But it's also very important historically. We are at the Chickamauga battlefield. This was one of 2 battlefields that are very important Civil War historic sites. Chattanooga was very important in the Civil War because it was the main link between the Mid-South and the Deep South. This is where all the railroads crossed. In the National Civil War parks, every movement, every state that fought is memorialized in some ways. A lot of these monuments were built by people from the states. Blue signs mean this was a Union position, and the gray signs mean it was a Confederate spot. Each of these very elaborate monuments is made to tell the story of what happened to the soldiers who fought here. Surviving on acorns at Chickamauga.
Private August Brotnover, a Union infantryman, wrote this account of the action here on September 20th.
Here's a painting that shows the carnage of the battle, and a map showing their positions. Where all these handsome monuments in this bucolic place are now. 35,000 people wounded or killed here. This is the Snodgrass cabin. This would have been the only structure in the area at the time of the battle. Wars at that time were not fought in towns. It was about strategic places outside of towns where you could watch over the town and lay siege to it. A pretty typical log cabin of its time. It'll have new materials now because it's been restored, but these would have originally been mud in here to hold together the logs. And just like Lincoln logs, you just cut them and stack them up. This is what most people lived in this part of the country, especially if you were in a rural place at this time. Very bare bones. There's the fireplace. The Snodgrass cabin and cabins like it were very important because they ended up being field hospitals. And yes, amputation was a standard treatment. So there were a lot of war veterans who were missing limbs by the time it was over. I find this one interesting because this one is Kentucky, and of course Kentucky was one of the divided states during the war, but these were the Kentuckians who fought with the Union. Independent U.S. Volunteers. The Ohio Volunteers. These bronze plaques alone are beautiful and valuable if you can find them. This bronze is by H.W. Beatty, a famous bronze sculptor of the era. It's a pretty good depiction of the way battles were. You see logs that are put up as breaks and lines of people. It was very unfortunate that both sides in the Civil War had been trained using the same methods, so they fought the same exact way for a very long time, and that's why it went on so long and was so horribly deadly. I've done some appraisals of cannons recently, and reproductions of these are thousands of dollars, so you can only imagine what a real original is. There are a few in private hands, not too many these days. You see these big old foundry marks, all of the big heavy castings. It is hard to believe that they had to drag these things around. There is the U.S. mark on the top, and the stamp of the foundry and the end of the barrel there. It's hard to imagine that a place so pastoral was a place of such carnage. I hope you enjoyed this first glimpse at the East Ridge Antique District in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We'll be back here to see more because there is so much more to see here. Lots of other shops. So stay tuned and we will show you the rest eventually. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, check out this one. Also, click thumbs up to like this video and check the description for information about our Patreon, our memberships. We've got a lot of different levels with different perks and bonus videos and early content. Also, please do check out our website, theantiquenomad.com, for appraisal help. And we'll see you again for more adventures in the antique and vintage community soon. Bye for now.